Hey, hello. How are you, everyone? So welcome to this very special edition of the Strategy Club Conversations. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you?
Yeah, very well, sir. Good day, sir.
Awesome. Good to have you. Good to have you. Welcome. So I'm just going to, we're streaming on 3 social media platforms, and we are on our traditional clubhouse. So we're trying to see how this can reach more people. And today we're going to talk about reflection. And I hope you had a great day today. We went out to an event, and one of our sister platforms, Iwineti Africa, we got an award as a great volunteer for the progress of young African entrepreneurs, and that was really good because it's like the crowning of the year, so to speak. So today we're going to talk about reflection, and I thought about sharing this because many times we talk about the concept of resilience, negotiation, having a fighting spirit, pushing hard, strategizing, etc. When we talk about these concepts, people tend to place themselves in a scenario where they are constantly trying to do something, where we are constantly trying to do something. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the congrats. Some people have put it that in constantly trying to do something, we may fail at becoming what we are actually supposed to become. In other words, the whole thing is about efforts, exertion. But sometimes we need to sit back and reflect and ask ourselves, am I achieving my goals? Am I doing this the right way? Have I articulated myself properly? We're going to present this in the form of an acronym for the word reflect, and look at a few words that address that issue of reflection. I'm not going to try to define it as such, but by the time I go through the words, we'll be able to see how much value we can pass on it. Now, before I go into that, I'm just going to give you a few announcements. And for those of us who might be joining us for the first time or watching this online or listening to it as a replay, this is the Strategy Club. On a monthly basis, we'll come together to have these conversations. And for the better part of this year, we've had these conversations on Clubhouse. We share a thought, we have questions, we interact, we call people to share it, to respond with the practical realities associated with the principles we're trying to share. So it's a motivational session. It's a session that where we have a conversation. Is a session that allows us to engage deeper in terms of talking about what we have been trying to do. And this is probably the last one for the year, really. And we want to just focus on the topic of reflection. And the Strategy Club, all this while we've been focusing on what we call emerging entrepreneurs. We don't like to call them small scale business because obviously everyone wants to grow big. But when we say emerging entrepreneurs, we're talking about those who are at a stage where they are not famous, they are not very well known, they may be struggling, they may need a lot of help. And I've said before that if you're a doctor and you can heal the sick, you better go where the sick are. So we try to pass on, knowledge to these emerging entrepreneurs from experience in the corporate sector, from experience, from theories in the academia. And that is why we say when we share, we want people to go out, make an attempt. We want to give people the tools, the strategy they need to get moving. And then we are happy for you to come back to tell us, look, this doesn't work in practice in my environment. This doesn't work in practice in my industry, and so forth, so that we can, fine-tune the practice, fine-tune the theory, and align it better with the practice. So this is the first time we're streaming, and we're hoping that more people will be able to see this, engage with it. For those who have had issues, working with Clubhouse, for example, we are focused on locally made goods because for us, it's a strategic decision. The reason being that most of the people we will classify as emerging entrepreneurs are playing in that space, in food and drinks, clothing, food processing, agribusiness, and also all sorts. That is the area that most of the people that we may classify as emerging entrepreneurs are playing in. The second thing is that we feel, sorry about that background, we feel that in a part of the world, we are we have a heavy advantage in the area of consumer goods, because we can, for example, talk about clothing designs that don't occur anywhere else. If we want to compete in other things like, okay, electronics or technology and all that, it will be a hard time for us in our part of the world. So that's the strategic decision. That's a bit about the strategy club. We have a few programs which we want people to be aware of. In January, we are having, so we're going to be talking about customer experience for the first time, free of charge, so that people can experience what it means to be in simple technology for small business. We're also going to have a town hall where those who are members can share with us what they would like to see in 2024. All right, so let me dig into the topic of reflection. Reflect. There are 7 words I'm going to use to explain the concept reflect. The first one is recall. One of the term here refers to walking through the events of the past 12 months in our minds and asking questions along the way. Questions that we want to ask may border on, what is it that worked for me this year? What is it that made sense? In what areas was I able to see the impact of the results of the effort I made, or the results from the efforts I made? When you engage yourself in that, to that extent, you want to find out what is working. You go through the year, the months. January, what did I attempt? February, what did I attempt? March, what did I attempt? What worked? What didn't work? Because I want to tell you something, that one of the postures we take when we talk about strategy is that we do not have control over everything. And one of the things we definitely don't have control over is the way people respond to us. We can make a lot of effort, put out our adverts, scream from the rooftop. We don't have control over the response. We have control over our own efforts. We can, evaluate the environment, evaluate the previous responses, and then kind of like try to fine-tune our effort. We can do all that, but we can never influence people's responses very accurately. Let me put it that way. We can't be sure that if I do this, this will happen. Many things happen that are out of our control. So when we reflect, when we recall what has happened, when we play it back in our minds. Great to see you, Chisom. Great to see you, Uche. Thank you for joining in. When we play it back in our minds, we now begin to probably will see gaps in our approach. Probably we'll see what we should put more effort into. and probably we'll see what we should stop doing. There are areas where we'll see that, look, this one, it's not making sense. It's not working, right? And that reflection will, and I'll talk about this more later, will also show us what Pareto talked about, which 20% of our efforts is responsible for 80% of our results. Recall, all you have to do is remember, sit back and say, what have I tried? What have I done? What have I put effort into? What have I put money into? Which relationships have I formed? Which events have I hosted? What is working and what is not? That is recall. Play it back. Sit down, take time. Don't remember it as a flash, as something that just came to mind by itself. Sit down and maybe you want to close your eyes or whatever it is, but try to play it back. All the things in the context of the area you want to address. Play it back. Recall. Number 2 is engage. As you recall, maybe you want to put down what you're recalling. Maybe you want to make notes, right? And then you engage by talking to people, asking close friends, what did you think about this effort? Sometimes it's customer feedback you're trying to get, because you want to face your truth. You want to face your truth. It could be co-workers, it could be employees, it could be partners, and say, okay, let's sit down and think about this. I remember we did this 1, 2, 3. I have done my recall. I've done my the layout, like listing in retrospect what happened within the year, and then you now begin to engage in terms of thinking deeply and asking questions, in terms of asking other people questions about what you have recalled. You may want to extend this engagement by doing what is called competitor analysis. I remember we had a conversation around that in 2023. If you want to listen to that again, that's great. So today you can easily see what people are doing by looking at their social media, looking at their internet platforms, etc. So when you look at that, what happens is you compare it with what you recall about what you have attempted during the year. Compare it and ask yourself, okay, what is it that I did this year? Or what is it that this person did this year that gave him the advantage beyond me, ahead of me, so to speak? What is it that I could have done to look better like what this person is doing and succeeding? It's all contextual, but it makes sense to do that analysis, right? Because I see that a lot of people, we are so consumed about selling ourselves that we're not paying attention to others. And we talked about this when we talked about getting attention by paying attention. Getting attention by paying attention. Sometimes we're just out there pumping things, throwing things around, selling, trying to draw attention to ourselves. But we don't realize that sometimes making a connection in a different way works better. Rather than throwing ourselves about, we want to actually see, okay, this thing I've been trying to do, has someone done it? How did they do it? And what can I learn from how they did it? That's engage. Don't isolate. So after you've recalled, after you've outlined in the retrospect the events of the year, then engage. Engage your mind, engage other people, engage employees, engage relatives, and ask, what do you think about this? People will typically tell you the truth if they are convinced that you want to hear it. Many people just go about their own business and go on because they are not convinced that you really want the truth. They feel that maybe you want them to massage your ego. But when you open up and engage at a certain deep level, and people begin to realize, yes, this person really wants to hear my opinion, and they probably will open up. The third word that we're going to look at is filter. And this brings me to the talk of Pareto principle, which again which says that 20% of your effort is yielding 80% of your results. And in filtering, what you're trying to do is to isolate the most important 20%. What is the 20% responsible for your business advancement? What is the 20% responsible for your revenue? What is the 20% responsible for your visibility? It will help you fine-tune what you really want to be meditating on, because you just can't solve all the problems of the world. You just can't solve all the problems in your business at the same time, at an instant. There you need to like filter out what you want to focus on addressing, and iterating this year. Maybe you discover that there's an area in terms of my marketing, and you say, okay, what am I going to do differently in next year? What energy, how much energy do I need to push into this skill? How much skill do I need to push into this? You want to isolate an area that really needs solving, that will yield the kind of results that you want to get. So that's filter. Number, I think this is 4. We've talked about recall, engage, filter, learn. So you've articulated the list. You've gathered opinions about that list of items you've recalled. You filtered and narrowed down to the most important aspects or elements or items on your list. Then you ask yourself, what have I learned? What have I learned from what has worked? What have I learned from what has not worked? I remember a colleague of ours, he said something very powerful when we were doing some of a particular big program in my last organization. He said that we can even become consultants at this. Somebody made fun and said, even when we have not even succeeded. But his point of view was that you can become a, in quotes, consultant or an expert by knowing what not to do. By being able to say, we tried this, this is why we think it won't work. So learn. You don't have to succeed to learn. You just have to engage or be in the game to learn. When you're in the game, you learn, right? And if you're able to articulate the items that are showing up on your list, you likely learn from them. Filter out what is most important. Learn from them. If knowledge, whatever you've put together, must drive change. It must tell you, this is what I should stop, this is what I should continue, this is what I should start, etc. Let that be the focus of the exercise. Number 5, evolve. Evolve. Are you willing to change? Are you willing to, take on a new outfit? Are you willing to take a new direction? Are you willing to stop what you thought was correct, but you discovered it's not? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to? So in that moment of reflection, you have not effected the change. You have not deployed the new mechanisms of your business. You are yet to experience 2024, but you have a mindset that says, yes, based on what I've put together in my mind about my current experience, I'm ready to change the experience. So that means you've begun the evolution from within your mind. You've begun to change the way you think about, the areas of your concern. You've begun to transit from here to here mentally. Otherwise, you walk into the new era ready to exert more effort that you've already exerted before. It happens to all of us. If we have no readiness to make a transition, we will just be, ready to repeat what we've done before, or blindly copy what others are now doing without thinking about how the last episode went. Number 6, evolve. I've talked about evolve. Create, rather. Create. That means you are ready to take action mentally. You've evolved, you've transited. Now you want to create exact systems. I mean, this could be translated as to setting goals, for example. It could be developing a new product or business model. It could be changing business. It could be whatever it could be. But the idea is you are now setting up a mechanism to implement what you've learned, to practicalize, to practicalize, in quotes, what you have discovered in those items you filtered. If you get my attention, if you catch my drift. So essentially, you want to create the mechanisms. You cannot make change in a vacuum. You have to essentially decide. I mean, make the change happen. I mean, in terms of create a way that is going to unfold. How is this going to work? How is the new system going to work? You create it. And that's part of the reason why we have something called the interactive ideation session, which is basically a platform for helping, emerging entrepreneurs develop an execution strategy. How we position ourselves to make a change. Very important. So you create something new. Then track. You do some tracking. The tracking means now that you are creating a new mechanism to launch, to do something new, ask yourself, how am I going to make sure that I'm doing what I have planned? Am I going to have an accountability partner? Am I going to come into a group like this, like the Strategy Club, every month and share my experience and say, this is what I'm experiencing. I need help in this area, or I have set this goal and I want you to keep me accountable, and so forth. So that is your tracking mechanism. You've set the goal, you've learned, you have made the mind shift, but you now want to have a way in which you're actually going to measure the implementation of your new direction. So that is reflect, recall, engage, filter, learn, evolve, create, and track. So I want to open up the floor for responses, for questions. I know there are just a few of us in the room, but maybe there's something that has struck you. Maybe there's something that you want to inquire more about. Maybe something that you have already practiced and you say to yourself, excuse me, I've tried this, it doesn't work. So I want to hear from those on the floor. Yeah, so I'm just going to invite you to the podium as usual. And then I'm going to ask Elizabeth to kick off this section of the conversation. If you can hear me, go ahead.
I've been off and on, but the bit I had from what your submissions was the 80-20 rule.
Yep.
I'll urge us all to take our time out to identify our 20 that's responsible for 80% of our results and better it. Bettering it will give us leverage to be able to conquer the world out there. It's a jungle out there, and I believe we all know that. We've seen it firsthand, and we are still surmounting challenges. It's a beautiful thing that we have a strategic club that nudges us to move a step further in our dreams, and let's not take it for granted. Thank you all for being on this call. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, sir.
Have a great weekend.
Awesome. All right. Chisom.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Hi. Good
Can
evening.
you hear me? Can I?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Good evening. Okay. First of all, compliments of the season to everyone. It feels good to be back at the clubhouse after a very long while. Okay, so for me, just like Mr. Uche, so I think the 2080 principle kind of stuck at me because the truth is, just like what you said, that 20% of our actions give 80% of our results and all that. Then also, that got me to start. As you were talking, I was just playing in my head. So, what 20% of my actions have given me the results I had in 2023? So, I guess that's something I will have to ponder on and filter and streamline so that I know where to channel my energy and where to improve on and where to probably let go in 2024. So for me, yeah, that was it. And also, the fact you talked about being conscious of what you're doing, what is working and what is not working, because sometimes you can be doing something and it's not working. And, there's this tendency for you to console yourself with the adage that the patient dog eats the fattest bone, but maybe you're just farming in a very barren land. So you probably just need to change where you're farming. So sometimes you need to actually take a deep, thought and find out, okay, so that you're not just being a patient dog that will end up hungry, you understand? So you have to be sure that you're actually in the right direction and all that. And I think that's where reflections and all that come to play. So yes, so for me, that's the major take out of today's conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I did start the conversation by saying, yes, we have said before, resilience, negotiation, hanging in there, pushing, but we must balance it with strategy. What does that mean? That not everything is under our control. Not everything will respond simply because we're applying more effort. We need to reflect, identify what is working, and then make the changes that we need to make. And we talked about reflect as an acronym. Recall, play it back in your minds step by step deliberately. Engage, ask questions of yourself, with your friends, with relatives, co-workers, employees. Be open to criticism, scrutiny. Filter, isolate the areas you want to really, really address in the coming period or cycle. Learn. Make sure you are actually learning from both the bad experiences and the good experiences. Evolve. Start with a mental shift and change. Then create new systems to do things in a new way. Track. That means decide that this is how I'm going to check at each juncture, at each milestone, whether I'm making progress in the right direction. Okay, so I hope that has been helpful. Just a quick reminder that we have planned a town hall for January 6th. So you should have received the email in your box. If you can make it, please accept. What we want to do in that call is to hear from everyone and ask, what do you want to see happen in this club in 2024? I want to ask, what should we do more from your perspective? I want to put the question out. And also, hooray, is a hooray thing. Simple technology for small business is free in January. So take the advantage and come in and see what it looks like. That will be 28th of January. And we're going to be talking about common sense customer experience. Please sign up for it. kennethigiri.com/STSB. We're going to be talking about, we're going to be sharing a few stories, real life stories. We're going to also be injecting some learnings from the IT Infrastructure Library, which is a service management framework. We're also going to be really digging deep into certain principles that young small businesses should learn in order to give their customers a wonderful experience. So please look out for those two things. Let me turn to Elizabeth. Did I forget anything? What is missing? What should I have talked about? Are we
Okay,
good?
Sasa, you're on point.
Awesome.
Yes, you're on point.
Awesome.
Yeah. I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to mention that we are still collecting the videos.
Okay.
We'll be featuring on where do you see yourself in the next 1 year, right? So a lot of us have shared our submission, and it would still be great to still have anyone that wants to share, and also let's try and engage on our social media handles. Let people see what we are doing. Let's publicize the strategy club. Let's shout about what we are doing here, so people can also be part of what we are doing and also share how it's beneficial to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a powerful one. Engaging on social media, sharing. Well, I think the visibility is growing. We just need more engagement. More and more people are getting to know what's all about. So we're just going to keep pushing for more engagements so that we can get more value. There's no value in passing by and liking. It is getting the knowledge, getting the engagement, and really putting into practice in your. Well, there is some value in the like, but I mean that the real value is the being involved to really translate from knowledge, from exposure to real value. And that's why it's a long-term relationship that causes change. So I'd like to invite us, stay engaged, and keep telling us how we can refine to be of more value. So we're going to close out today a bit early, and let's see how the live streaming works out, whether more people are able to get this message. And see you in January, on January 6th. Looking forward to that. All right, I'm closing out the room soon. Thank you very much for being there. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.